have increased strength and speed, and some form of bat radar. What else can I do?
Speaking of artists, how dare you? How dare you? You always dare so greatly in your roles. But I'm wondering if this was a dare for you in the sense of, and when you said this in a previous interview, 30 years and this is your first lead. What kind of a risk or dare was that for you as an actor?
I mean, I appreciate that. And, you know, I have fought hard to get these opportunities where I'm able to dive in and take big swings. And I really love that. And when I was asked to do Morbius, there was a few things that excited me. Number one, this character's never been on screen before. And to introduce this character to audiences for the very first time is a pretty big honor. So there's that. And the fact that it was this really physical transformation kind of seemed suited to me, or for me. You know, there are really three characters in one here. And I really, I love that there was a big problem to solve, a big challenge here. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
Surprised that you said three characters. I would have thought two. And I wanted to ask you, first of all, you have physically transformed for so many roles, but I was curious about the two comic book films, Joker versus Morbius. When you are in that zone, because I know you get super immersed, can you sort of describe sort of the difference between being immersed as Joker and immersed as Morbius, full Morbius?
You know, for me, every part that I play is really different. Someone was saying the other day they would love to see all these characters in one room have a conversation. And you know, I suppose, you know, when I'm looking at characters anyway, you know, exploring the differences rather than the similarities is a fun place to start. But whether it's Paolo Gucci or We Crashed or Morbius or Requiem or whatever else, Little Things, it's really fun to craft these characters. And for me, they're like real people. You know, they're like, they're alive in some way, and you know, and in my heart and in my head, and I get quite close to the characters. But it's a great privilege to be able to take on such a diverse group of characters and a really challenging group of characters. And I love that. I fought really hard for that opportunity. And I always make sure that I push myself and hopefully deliver, you know, something that's exciting for audiences.
Speaking of pushing yourself, I know some of the cast has talked about, you know, people talk about how you transform for a role, but in this, you transform within a scene from Dr. Michael Morbius to full-on Morbius. I'm thinking about the cage scene in particular, where your body is contorting, your face is contorting, and they shoot that so close up, and that transformation is really visceral in your face. I'm wondering for you as an actor, how that was to sort of transform within a scene.
It was exciting. You know, there's one of the reasons that I pushed hard to use CG, to use rather than prosthetics, because I thought that would free us up to do things like that, to change on a moment's notice. And I think that's something special about the character, is the way we go in and out, and surprise and delight audiences. That's a lot of fun.
How would you compare the physicality, like the fighting scenes? I'm thinking like back to like Fight Club, that sort of raw. I think you said you got hit a couple of times versus the fight scene in this film.
Well, we had a great team of like fight coordinators and, you know, stuntmen and women, and it just was the absolute best of the best. So, you know, I was in their hands, and they really they make me and Morbius look good, and you know, I adore them.
Okay, let's get sinister for a second. I know you've talked about how there's a much bigger world coming. Everybody's sort of waiting for that announcement. I think it's kind of the inevitable there's going to be a Sinister 6, but who would you sort of, first of all, which of the Spider-Man iterations would you be most excited to sort of go to toe-to-toe with? And then also, which of the sort of more sinister characters would you be most excited to sort of team up with?
Well, I love all the Spider-Mans. They're such terrific actors. Tom Holland, though, is a new chapter, and Morbius is a new chapter, so that probably makes the most sense. And as far as Sinister Six, who knows? I mean, it would be great to get in the ring with Venom, but also, you have Blade and a lot of other characters out there. So who knows? We'll see what happens.
I know Kevin and Amy have both said that they're waiting for a team up. I mean, in the comics, you and Blade were, he was chasing you quite a bit. So
Yeah,
I mean, the opportunity to shoot with Mahershala, I'm sure would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be absolutely incredible. Such great actors. It would be a privilege to work with any of them.
So I want to talk about, I know you do a lot of preparation, and if this is a weird question, but did you study, I know you probably delved into maybe vampire movies. Did you study any of the previous MCU, any of the previous Spider-Mans? But particularly, did you study bats and the characteristics? Because your movements very much had that quality.
I mean, that's what's, look, when you take on a role, it's your job to turn over every rock, right? You never know where you're going to find something that inspires you. And in this case, there was this huge amount of material in these comic books and this beautiful artwork over the years. And a lot of different writers had interpretations of this character. So I just kind of dove in and explored and was buried in material. And, and then it was my job to interpret this character in a different way. And it was quite an honor to do that for the very first time.
All our lives we've lived with death. Why shouldn't they know what it feels like for a change? Just accept who you are. The bad guy.
So first of all, love your work, big fan, super excited to talk to you about this film. I know for Last Night in Soho, you talked a lot about how Edgar Wright gave you like a whole library of movies to watch to sort of delve into the role. I'm wondering if that extended to this. Are you now a Marvel aficionado? Sony, have you seen all the Spider-Mans, the comic book lore? Like, how did you sort of explore and immerse yourself in this world?
Yeah, well, of course, I made myself familiar with the world I needed to make myself familiar with in the Morbius or Morbiotic, if that is in a word sense.
I like it.
What I am an aficionado of is vampires and vampire movies. I love that. I'm not meant to say that because I'm not meant to talk about vampires, but that's the truth. I love them. I love vampire films. And so all of my life, really, I've sort of sought them out. And Edgar was really amazing for that, actually. He gave me a great list of vampire movies. Because he's got a list of, great everything movies. So yeah, I watched a lot of that stuff.
I can tell because it's kind of extended into your look today. So what's one that you would sort of say would be like a good pairing to watch with this film?
Oh, with this movie? Well, look, only because it's mentioned and it's really boring and really obvious, but I just think you sort of have to watch Lost Boys with this, because the lead character is called Michael, and I nicked straight out of it saying a word like Michael, and I just, as a little sort of nod to one of my favorite ever vampire films.
I love The Lost Boys. And until you said that, I didn't remember that is a callback to that film. But it was reminding me of something.
Well, there you go. You see, it's in the ether.
Something else was reminding me of something. Your dance scene in this movie. I watched it and I was like, hold on, this is reminding me of something. First of all, I want to know if that was choreographed down to a science or whether they just let you freewheel it, because I'm calling it the I'm feeling myself dance, like I'm feeling really good about myself. Yeah. I got a little bit of Spider-Man 3 vibes, maybe a little bit of Joker, and I know you love Joaquin Phoenix. I know you said before.
I love Joaquin Phoenix.
So tell me about crafting the dance.
Well, it was just a one-off thing, and actually we shot it we shot it at the end, and it wasn't choreographed. They just played some music on the day, and they were like, do something in the mirror, and I was like, okay. And that's why I love working with Daniel, because he's got the confidence and freedom to let something like that just evolve, and it doesn't have to be sort of overly precise, and so he lets you play, and we messed around, and there it is.
What were you dancing to? What was the song?
I think it's sort of a Swedish song, actually, because he's from Sweden. And I'd never heard it. And I had an idea. I wanted to play, I don't know, like the Stone Roses or something really English. He was like, no, this is it. This is going in the movie. So you're doing it to this. I was like, okay, cool. But it was cool because it had a sort of weird rhythm to it.
Yeah, no, and it was a vibe. And by the way, much better dance skills than Spider-Man 3. No offense.
Really?
No offense to Toby, but yeah, you have much better dance skills. But it was kind of reminding me of that, like I'm really coming into myself moment. From dance scenes to fight scenes. I mean, this was a really physical role, I'm sure. I'm wondering, and what was interesting about it was the morphing that took place. That I don't think I've seen a film like this where the morphing happens so like in your face, between your face and the fight scenes. Do you have to sort of like overact as an actor? Because some of it I'm sure is, I don't know how much was makeup, I'm sure, but how do you sort of tweak your performance knowing that they're going to add CG in to it?
Well, sadly, it's sort of my default to overact. So that sort of comes naturally to me. I do that bit. No, do you know what it is, right? It's sort of simpler than it looks on the day. They just put all those dots on your face. So you do your performance and then you might do a bit of a sort of a facial move or whatever. And then once the movie's made, you go into what looks like a padded cell. They put you in a helmet with a sort of arm on and a camera pointing at you and all these other cameras around you. And then you do what is, I suppose, monster acting. But these cameras and the way they film it is so intricate and clever. It allows that symbiotic technical thing to happen. It's very clever, really. It's nothing to do with me. It's all those clever CGI guys. Well done, you.
However, you just lit up when you talked about it in that monster face. You just said, I want 2 more hours of that monster face.
You don't. I think you want to punch me in the head by the end of it.
I know, Jared, people have talked about what an immersive actor he is. He really gets into character. Want to know sort of for you, how the two of you, I don't know what your process is, and how the sort of two of you work together in crafting that dynamic.
Well, it was very interesting, actually, because he's a sort of method actor, or what you would deem a method actor, I suppose. So you don't meet him before the first day on set. That's it. That's the first time I ever met Jared, was day one of the shoot. And it was the scene in when there's all the bats and he finds the cure and we've both got the stick and I get really cross with him and say, why wouldn't you give this to me as well? So I was really nervous, obviously, because it's your first day and you're meeting Jared Leto and you're playing this part. So, but that it does something quite interesting. It's sort of that it's an interesting process. I'd be keen to do it again. I have to say.
There's room in that world. Speaking of fights, was more intense, the fight scenes in this film or House of the Dragon? Because I know your character is quite intense and quite a warrior. And what can you sort of tease about how your character in that series is going to differentiate itself from the books? Well,
I like with everything, I think you try and sort of subvert things a little bit, don't you? And I hope with Daemon Targaryen, I've done a bit of that. The truth is, I don't know because I've not seen any of it. But the fight scenes in that were intense because you're in armor and the swords are huge. And it's just, there's so much in it. You're constantly fighting all the time for like 9 months because, he's a dragon rider. So that's his sort of stick. But I don't know what it's going to be like. I have no idea. I've not seen anything.
It's exciting. So back to this film. Did you talk to anybody else, like any of the other characters that played Spider-Man, anybody in the MCU, sort of before, during, or after about this experience?
Yeah, I spoke to Karen Gillan, who plays Nebula, because she's one of my best friends. And I was like, what's it like? What's the deal? What's it like being in a Marvel? She was like, go, do it, do one. But that was it, really. She's the only person I know who, that I spoke to in depth about it. But she was really sort of encouraging. She was fabulous.
There are limits. There has to be.
There's something inside of him. He wants to hunt and consume blood.
Michael.
So first of all, congratulations on the film. I know I didn't speak to Tyrese about it, but I heard him talking about, Daniel, your style as a director. He said you're very, quick, like it's a fast-paced set. He said you will not hesitate to tell somebody if they're not giving you what you want. You're very blunt. I want to ask you about that. And then also you as an actress, how did you experience that on your part?
On my part, or?
So you start?
Oh, so I start?
No, but I mean, I can talk about, I just think that Tyrese is a lovely human being and became like a very good friend. And, I hope I was never, blunt or harsh with him. But I think that's my job, is to really help the actors, find their truth, and with all of them, Al Madrigal, Jared Leto, Adria, Tyrese, Jared Harris. It was a beautiful experience to be able to be so honest and present with them, you know, and yeah.
Yeah, no, but he said it in a complimentary way. He
Thank
appreciated
you.
it.
Yeah,
So hard.
No, but I
So
love him. You know, he's become like a good close friend. You know. So
yeah, no, he said you brought out the best in him. So Adria, what about you?
Yeah, I think sort of like Tyree said, but I think, you would show up on set and I think the bar was set so high and Daniel made sure that, one, to protect us, he only wanted us to succeed and knew our limits and really wanted to take us through the most truthful version of each scene. Yeah, and I don't think he was pampering egos, and nor would I ever want him to. For that, I go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I want him to tell me, yes, I'm doing good or no, so I can go home and, go to sleep, and I don't have to be doubting in my mind, did I do a good job? Did I do a bad job? I know I would leave set knowing that if he said we're moving on, I 100% knew we were moving on.
I would appreciate that too. I love feedback. I'm like, communicate, please. For you, Daniel, how did you shoot? Because it's the first time I think I've ever seen in a comic book film the face morphing so close up. I want to know how you shot that and how did you direct your actors? Because I asked Matt, I said, did you have to overact a little bit when you knew the face was going to morph? And he says, well, I think I always overact a little bit, but how did you shoot those scenes?
I mean, in many ways, technology has gotten so far. So I would ask, all of them to, when they were in store for a transformation, that they would try to embody the soul of the character. And I mean, you should see, Jared Leto becoming Morbius without the special effects. It's still Morbius. It's still visceral. It's still dangerous. It's still frightful. So it all stems from him. It is his performance. We are merely tool crafters but we just fix it.
I think, Adria, you talked about watching Jared do the cage scene and said that maybe like he was terrifying. Like even the crew I heard was like, whoa. What was it like to sort of be, because I know he's a very immersive actor. Was that a different experience for you? And how did you experience doing scenes with him?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a different style of working. I think it's a lot easier because he gave me a good reference to sort of react from, as opposed to, someone else that might be like, no, they'll be in special effects. I'll go, rah, rah, rah. And then everything sort of relies on the reaction of the person that makes it feel and look real. And Jared didn't do that. Jared was there and he went there 100%, which made my job just so much easier because, it was terrifying to watch him do that. I felt like all his veins were going to pop out of his head and his neck, and the way he contorted his body. I like Daniel said, I want to see the version without the special effects because I think it'll be equally as good.
For scenes, there you go, Daniel. I wanted to follow up and ask you a question about, you are sort of like the most level-headed of the trio between Loxias and Morbius. You're sort of like the person that keeps her head. All three characters very, very smart, but what was important for you in creating your character and creating that sort of dynamic in the trio amongst each of you?
Well, I mean, I think I'm a woman and I have that by nature. I think when in doubt, call a woman and she'll sort of put all the stuff together and repuzzle everything. I think it was quite easy, those dynamics to sort of create. I think we had established a good relationship with me and Dr. Morbius and sort of that she's almost like an anchor to Dr. Morbius and a protector and loves him blindly and sort of risks everything for him and for his well-being. So anybody that sort of comes near him or has a malintention sort of triggers Martine a little bit. And I think Martine knew that, that Milo I think Martine feels Milo as a trigger, I think, way before a lot of things go down.
And sensibilities always. Daniel, what I really appreciated, I watch a lot of movies and a lot of superhero movies. And one thing I really appreciated about the way you shot the action was sometimes when I've watched a superhero and I see the wide shot and they're zipping along, and then you see them close up punch, and you can tell it's not the same power. Everything in this was super high speed, and you used a lot of color. There was like a purple color with Morbius. Can you sort of talk about crafting those action scenes, and why was it important for you to set a different tone than maybe we've seen before?
I wanted it to be a more kind of immersive experience. I wanted us to become like one of those people, that were running along with them, that we were inside of the action. We were not watching it from afar. So I was hoping to give us an immersive experience. And I think an immersive experience is a psychedelic. Not that I've had like a big experience of psychedelia, but I was aspiring to give a little bit of that to the audience.
Adria, for you, future, I know everybody's waiting for a Sinister 6 movie, maybe a possible team up with Spidey. Which character would you personally as an actress like to team up with in the future, in a future film?
Team up with or fight against?
Either. Which as an actress, which actor or character?
Look, I really love and admire Tom Holland. And what he's done. I think he got that role so young and has killed it. He's done such an amazing job. He's so funny. I think he's a great actor. I think he's a really great Spider-Man. So I mean, I would want to see something there, right? Or no?
Of course. I mean,
I'm like,
it's your question. What do you want to do? No,
I mean,
you can answer the question too for yourself.
Yeah, I think Jared and I, they asked us this in Mexico, and the both of us just looked at it, was like, Tom Holland.
Yeah.
I think we were
No,
all
but I
thinking-
mean, I would like to see, if I could cross any kind of universe, against each other. I think it would be awesome to see Morbius fight Wolverine. I think that would be great.
Ooh.
Yeah. Who would win?
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
And they both had the nails. Then they both had the nails.
No, it's a very, very, very interesting fight. Who the hell are you, man?
I am Venom. I'm just kidding. It's Dr. Michael Morbius at your service.